Hello everyone, and it's time once again for the ReQuest. It's me, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is Austin, the Day Ghost. We've been off for a week. We're finally back. It's good to see everybody. Austin, I feel like I haven't done a stream, I haven't made videos in like a month. I don't even remember how to do this job anymore. Neither do you. We can't hear you. You got no microphone.
Oh my god, when will this end? And the worst part is that I never used to do it. It's more like recently it happens every time.
See, I was gonna give you an out and be like, you've also forgotten how to do this, but no, you've been doing that.
Better. I was like, yeah, it's been a week, so I also don't remember how to do this. Turns out, literally, I was muted.
I wish we could blame that, but you already had that problem. Anyway, but it's good to see you, Austin. Thanks for showing up for this.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Tonight's ReQuest comes from Carl Maxey on Patreon. Thanks a lot to him for asking for us, for this review, for us to talk about this. God, it feels like it's 1, 2 in the morning right now, Austin. That's where I'm at right now.
Boy.
I'm going to try and get myself into this here. Work out the kinks some. Hey, if you're watching live right now, thanks a lot for being here. Thanks for watching after the fact, as always, as well. If you're so inclined and you want to stick around with us a little bit later, assuming that my brain is functioning well enough, I'm on the mend. I've been sick. Things have been kind of weird at my place, but I'm bouncing back. Anyway, we're going to be doing some more Ninja Turtles 2003 commentary in another stream right after this, theoretically, so pop in and hang out for that. You can watch that later as well. Tonight, we're going to talk about the remake of the Wolfman from 2010, the Universal Monster movie, which I heard a little bit about when it came out from Vince, because he's real into these kinds of things, and I remember him being a little bit lukewarm on this movie, but I think he liked it okay. I think he was a little bit uncertain about it, Austin, where it was like he was kind of rooting for it. I think he saw it and he was like, I mean, it's not as bad as people are saying it is. I think he liked some things about it, but I remember him being really conflicted about it. So I was curious to see what it would be like based on that. And
the reviews are bad enough. It has a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it was a commercial failure. It was met with middling to negative reviews. People weren't real happy with it, and I think I think one of the big things it had going against it was how long it took to come out. I think it was real late, and it was mired in reshoots, and there was a lot of kind of turmoil behind the scenes with this movie. And there's a real weird history with the soundtrack with this movie, where
I didn't see anything about that.
Yeah, where Elfman did a score, and then Johnston and the studio weren't happy with it and needed it redone because of the way they were doing reshoots and repacing it and stuff. He wrote a score for, it seems like, a longer and more deliberately paced movie, and they wanted something more kind of action-driven, popcorn superhero-y, and so, which is kind of ironic, given that it's Elfman. It's like Elfman didn't give them enough of a superhero score. And so then they went to a completely different composer that did a kind of more electronica thing with it, and they decided that his score didn't fit it at all, and so that's never been released. Nobody knows what that sounds like, but he did a full score apparently. So they went back to Elfman at the 11th hour, and he was working on some other movie before, and they couldn't re-get him, but finally I think this is partly the reason, one of the big reasons the movie got put off. So then they went back to him, and I think with the help of some other composer, I'm not sure who it is. I did 5 minutes of research before we started. It was, they finally got a score based on what Elfman wrote originally. And we've heard about this with this kind of thing happening with some Elfman scores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, because my first thought when you were describing that was, why didn't they just ask Elfman to redo it? Because he's done a ton of superhero stuff. But if he was busy, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's easy.
He was working on something else. And then what's interesting is his original soundtrack came out, so you can actually go listen to that. And I think it came out before the movie did. And the movie came out, and it was a different score. Anyway, that whole thing is fascinating.
Hmm. Oh yeah, no, there's a ton of like production issues with this movie, and you
Yeah,
can really tell while watching it.
he was originally replaced by somebody named Paul Haslinger. That's the guy who did the electronic score,
I don't
and
recognize that
I
name.
don't either. I'm checking right now to see what else he worked on, but I would have loved. I would love to hear what that sounded like and how, to see if it really doesn't match it at all.
The
I
Wolfman's
He
tearing through
did.
London, and it's like, oots, 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 oots. Well, I
He
guess
did
this doesn't work.
Death Race and Shoot 'Em Up and
Oh, okay.
he also did some of the or maybe most of them, the Underworld movies. And I remember reading that in reshoots, the studio was trying to make the whole thing feel more like Underworld.
Oh, okay. Then I guess we're like a little bit past like the peak of the popularity of that, but that makes sense.
Now, I'll say I don't see a ton of that.
But I see like 8,000 influences, and they're all fighting for the top. So I didn't think of Underworld during it, but
Yeah, I didn't either.
'twas the time.
I'll tell you what I did think about. Ang Lee Hulk.
That's definitely one of them. Um, Sleepy Hollow is a big one.
Yep, it was like that's what I was gonna say. Is it's like which again Elfman score, but I'm pretty sure he scored Sleepy Hollow, right?
It is a Tim Burton
That's
movie, I'd
That's a
imagine
Tim
so.
Burton. Yeah, I haven't seen that since I was a kid. Not all the way through, anyway. But yeah, I was getting vibes from that. Like atmosphere is very much like that. The cinematography in places is a lot like that movie. So yeah, it felt like a blend of that and Ang Lee's Hulk, at least like story wise and thematically. There's a lot of like the psychology and the like tragic father son, or like father trying to control his son or turn him into a monster. All of that, from Ang Lee's Hulk is in this, and this is only 2 years after that.
Mhm. Well, it's
No, I'm
kind of
sorry, 7 years after that. That's '03, and this is 2010.
yes.
Sorry, for a second I had it in my mind that this movie is '05 because it kind of feels more mid 2000s than late 2000s.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was funny while watching this today. I was like, okay, like there's some Universal, like the Wolfman in this, but also Werewolf of London, which is the Wolfman movie before the Wolfman, but it also in places wants to be a Hammer horror movie, which is like the big thing that Sleepy Hollow is doing. That's like a big tribute to Hammer, and it does a lot
Yeah.
better. And then this also wants to be American Werewolf in London. Yeah, American Werewolf in London in places. So it's like all these different things that I don't think fully mesh together. And then I was looking into the background of it, and Benicio del Toro, when he came on, he was like, okay, I want it to be like Werewolf of London and the first Hammer werewolf movie. And I was like, okay, makes sense. Those two things are in there. The first writer that worked on this movie, the writer of Sleepy Hollow, like, okay, that's why that part's in there.
Oh, okay.
And it's like I just kept reading. It was like, oh yeah, all these like influence things. It's like being pieced on like as it's going in production. Like
Well,
none
and
of it's
yeah, it's not
a
just that it's
solid
influenced
image.
by those things; it's that people that worked on those worked on this. Because
Well,
you
and it's like
mentioned,
people are coming in and bringing in new influences, and instead of replacing it, they're just kind of slapping it on top.
yeah, so it doesn't feel collaborative so much as. Is it that thing where everybody sort of has a different vision and they're not all they're all meshing to make one cohesive whole? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, part of it too with that is just they changed writers and directors as well. So like there is like part of that. Like it's not the same project from start to finish.
You're right, yeah. So it's not so much because this happens sometimes with projects, right? Where you'll from everybody from the beginning, they just can't all get on the same page. But what you're
Mhm.
talking about is even if everybody was on the same page at the beginning, they couldn't be by the end because they kept changing stuff and bringing in
Yeah,
different people.
exactly.
You mentioned American Werewolf in London. This is also Rick Baker, who did that movie.
Thanks. That was the connection to that. You're right. Yeah, and
Yeah,
his effects in this are great.
yeah. Well, they
And
always are. Baker
they
is
always
wonderful,
are.
and,
He
and
has one of the
Baker pushed to get on this project.
Well, Rick Baker is like the greatest on-film werewolf transformation of all time with American Werewolf of
Oh,
London.
really? I've never seen that.
And I can't remember because like this is like decades old. I'm not even that old. Uh, this is like years old
Sadly, I can say
information.
that about things now.
I mean, I am technically decades old, but I wasn't like 5 looking into this and
It's the
didn't
difference between a couple and a few, and I'm at the a few place now. You're
exactly.
still at a couple decades.
Yeah, this is like years old information that I remember learning, but I think he did effects work for a transformation in this movie, and they threw it out and replaced it with CGI
Well, that's
that does
unfortunate.
not look good.
It doesn't look good at all. There's a number of places with this movie where I'm like, back the camera off. Like, don't show that to me that close up.
Mhm.
Yeah, some stuff that like I was embarrassed for it visually in places, which hurt my feelings because there were a lot of places where I was actually kind of impressed with the visuals. Like you're talking about inconsistency in tone. One of the things that really creates that is just inconsistency in effects, and I feel like we're seeing. This is 14 years ago, which is mind-boggling to me. But I feel like we're seeing the beginning in the mid to late 2010s of all of the problems that we're seeing now with most blockbusters, right? Is just like cramming stuff in, rushing things to the point where you're not really concerned with everything looking like it's of a complete whole piece. And so you have all these your practical effects are not meshing with your visual effects, and your visual effects aren't meshing with all of the other visual effects. Like they just look like they're made by different people with different levels of competency, and what you're really seeing is just timetables and rush jobs. And this really has that, right? This really has that 11th hour feel
Well, you know what I was
with
thinking
with
of was
some moments, and there's other moments that are beautiful and really impressive.
mhm. No, it makes perfect sense that this is the year before and the same director as First Avenger, because it's got some of those issues.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of it's probably his fault.
Hmm. Well, I will say a lot of the stuff from like, okay, that's clearly a green screen. I don't think looks as bad as the First Avenger third act. But then like CGI creature stuff does.
Yeah, no, that's real
It looks
rough.
worse.
And
Yeah,
when you have the practical effects, it makes it stand out a lot more, right? Like if the whole
especially when they're so good. Yeah.
yeah, because if the whole thing looked like well, can we just say like because I said visual effects not blending all together with this particular project. I think the CG just in general is not good.
Hmm. Well, I feel like horror
And again,
has like a
it's
harder.
been 14 years, but I feel like I would have been saying this at the time probably too.
Mhm. Well, I feel like horror in general has like a harder time with CGI because you look at it and it's like that's not scary. Like that's like a wonky effect.
Yeah, like I Am Legend.
Or the It movies where like there's some good practical stuff there, and then they like CGI open his mouth and it doesn't look good.
Yeah, like if you're going to have a lot of practical effects, I'm not saying never use CG. I'm saying you need to use it as an enhancement,
Mhm.
and it can't hit me upside the head. Like I loathed with a burning passion. This is around the same time. The movie Legion.
I was gonna say, are you gonna say
I'm gonna
Legion?
say Legion. Well, and this is not my genre, so I have the few kind of
No,
tentpole
I just know
examples
that
I
you
go
hate
to.
Legion, so I was just wondering if I was able to predict that.
Well, I just have to throw in kind of that caveat I always do with this, where it's like I'm not super qualified to talk about this genre. I this wanting to be aimed in more of, in some ways, the superhero direction and having some of the casting it has and stuff. I can see why Carl might have wanted me to talk about this, but in the Wolfman and the Universal monsters and the horror movie direction, we're going to be giving Austin a lot of the floor.
Well, and it's cool because we have a commentary up of the original movie, so like that's also cool.
Yeah, which I saw for the first time talking over it. But
Exactly.
I liked that a lot. What I was able to pay attention to, and I wish I'd had a chance to rewatch that for this. I did go back and look at a plot synopsis again just to refresh my memory as to what this was drawing from and what it isn't. I like that it's trying to tell a a pretty different story. Like I'm not even sure that, like, and I don't know if you'll agree with this. And you have more of an investment in this than I do, but and then I'll go back here in a second and make my Legion point.
Yeah,
But
sorry, I threw you off.
no, you're fine. I just remembered. I never actually finished that thought. But with story stuff, and again, I don't know if you'll agree with this, but I didn't feel like on paper there was anything about the story approach that was like wrong or awful or anything. I thought there were things that could have been a great deal more fleshed out. I thought we really rushed the father's motivation. We kind of, and spoilers as always with this, but we Anthony Hopkins, and he's real typecast in this. We kind of just go, he turned into a werewolf and he went crazy. Like I thought we could have, it could have been a great deal more interesting, if he had a little bit more like specific motivation in like the death of his wife and the way he treated his son and all of that, and it's kind of just brushed under the rug that he went nuts after he became a werewolf, and that's kind of about it. Like, we were playing him up as this big kind of mysterious, morally ambiguous character, and the big reveal finally is he's a werewolf and he likes being a werewolf because he's crazy. And I'm like, wouldn't it be more interesting if he had like a real argument for why he likes being a werewolf? And I've seen that now in other werewolf things, where there's like a philosophy of people that become werewolves and like it because it makes them feel godlike, and they have power they can take advantage of. I wonder where that was in this movie, and that's where Ang Lee's Hulk actually has the advantage over this movie, is that at least that guy had a philosophy, such as it was.
No, that is true. This needed to have Hopkins yelling that he's going to take all of his son's power at the end.
Yeah, honestly, I was kind of expecting that, or not exactly that. Not like he needs to take his power or something, but that they would start to form like a pack or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't
that'd be something.
I want to rewrite the thing, but there wasn't really anything there, and it was kind of pretending like there was. I thought the Legion point was just that movie had really crappy CG, but it was all CG, and it wasn't trying to do hardly anything practical, so at least it was consistently bad. This kept impressing me and then disappointing me.
Yeah, I would say that's my biggest thing.
I can even say that, like, story-wise, too.
Mm-hmm. No, I would say that's my biggest thing with this movie, is I'm very much in the same line as how you described Vince, where it's like, I'm lukewarm feeling it, but I also think it's a very frustrating movie because I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, but like this stuff isn't working. Like, we need to amp up the things that are working and maybe rewrite or change the things that aren't. That's my review.
I was enjoying a lot of it while I was watching it. This is one of those movies where, and I hate this phrase. I always hesitate saying this. This is a turn your brain off kind of movie.
Yeah,
because I was sucked into the atmosphere of it, and then it would take me out of that with. Nicholas Bodo just asked about the gore, and that's the next place I was going to go. I would get taken out of it when we'd have this. I felt like fairly authentic but heightened kind of period piece, and then now it's a modern violent action movie. Okay, and like it kept getting in the way of it. Like it couldn't decide. One of the ways it was inconsistent too, I felt, Austin, is that it couldn't decide if it wanted to pretend to be a movie made in the time that the original Wolfman was made. Where it's like it's the same period. It's like turn of the century, and then, or what, like kind of mid late 1800s. I forget what exactly the date is. It's like 1880s, 90s, whatever. And then you'd get into these like what's that vampire movie that comes out around the same time that's based on a comic book?
30 Days a Night.
30 Days a Night. It gets into that kind of action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
Didn't gel at all.
the gore stuff I'm more fine with than you are, it sounds like. My main issue is the jump scare stuff. Like this is like some of the most obnoxious jump scares I've ever seen in a movie.
Okay, can I meet you in the middle and say I feel like they go hand in hand?
That's fair.
Because
That's
some of
fair.
those happen, like it's shock factor stuff in the middle of an action scene, and I'm not being a prude saying it's too violent. I'm saying I don't like the brand of the violence. Like I don't. I feel like the movie in the talking scenes wants to be classier than the way they're shooting their action.
Hmm. That's true, and I
So if
think
you
you
want to
can.
have, sorry, if you want to have uh, like like a werewolf hand go right through a guy's face, okay, but you don't shoot it the way you do 30 Days a Night. Like you gotta
Hmm.
you gotta put the camera in a different place. Like I didn't buy that in this movie.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's
It
fair.
was too
I
it was
think,
too shock factory.
but I think you could have had it where it's like the dialogue scenes are very, classic, and then the action scenes are like a lot more graphic in updating it. Because obviously you couldn't get away with that in the 40s, and like that's a big thing with hammers. Hammer starts to like pour in the blood and stuff, and that's just another place where I think Sleepy Hollow does this idea better, where it blends those ideas a little bit more than this does.
It's just the you could make anything work thing, right? Because you're
Hmm.
right. This is where I'm seeing a thing that doesn't mesh, and I'm walking backwards trying to explain why. Like it's just the brand of it. You're absolutely right. Tarantino makes this movie, and it probably works.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I'm not even a big fan of Tim Burton, but like I think Tim Burton made this idea work. That's one of my favorite Burton movies.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's real weird.
What's the big thing that has that this is missing? Is it just confidence? Is it just it understands what it wants to be? Like,
I think so, because that's very like this is Hammer horror as opposed to like, well, the talky scenes we want it to be more universal, while the action we want it to be more Hammer. So like it's more of like one thing that they're going for. I also think that movie just looks a little better. Like I think even atmospherically, uh, like the lighting and stuff, and the moodiness of it looks better.
and that's like 15 years earlier,
Is it that much earlier?
isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't Sleepy Hollow like mid 90s?
I have no idea. I'm so bad with dates.
I'll look that up, but I'm pretty sure that was like 90. I don't know. I thought it was like 96, 97. Maybe it's later than that.
Okay, I always assume that's later than it is then.
Chewbacca's Lover, $2 super chat. Rick Baker also did Jim Carrey Grinch. Is he bring? Thanks for the super chat. Is he bringing that up to say Baker's work's not always good, or
I think just to say like that's another thing that he did, maybe. I don't
I
know.
mean he's done lots and lots of things. Yeah,
Mm.
I mean if that's his point, like I think Jim Carrey it looks kind of odd in that makeup and everything, but I don't know how else you bring that to live action. Like I think it looked as good as it was going to. I think it just had a crap script,
Mm. Yeah, it was just
and that's fighting
Seuss
words
probably
to
shouldn't be in live action.
that that's fighting words to some people that grew up with it, but I've always hated
Oh
that
no,
movie.
I agree. I don't like that movie at all.
Well,
Uh,
yeah. I was gonna say you don't like Jim Carrey, but I don't think you're like anti Jim Carrey.
no, then that's like not like, oh, Jim Carrey. That's like
Yeah,
a, ooh, Dr. Seuss. Like stop trying to do it in live action and stop trying to make it feature length. It doesn't work. That's like a whole other annoyance thing.
have you ever seen the 5,000 Fingers of Doctor T?
No.
That is probably the greatest live action Dr. Seuss movie, and it's bizarre. Like, I mean, not actually great. Well, it doesn't have a lot of competition. Yeah, it probably is. That's a
It's
really
either that or Cat in the Hat.
that's a
So.
yeah, that's a very imaginative movie, and yeah, it's all the way back to 1953 is when that was made.
Oh, okay, I'll have to look into that. Because right now the bar is Cat in the Hat. I don't care what anyone says, it's better than the Grinch.
Anyway, Austin, talk a little about how this compares to the original. How do you feel about this as an adaptation or a remake?
So there's a lot more, like it is a lot more of a remake than I expected it to be. With a lot of the stuff, it's very just, like let's take the monster and do something else with it. And it is that, but there is also a lot of the original in it,
I
and there's
didn't
a lot
expect
of.
any of the characters' names to be the same, and they were.
Well, and I feel like that's normally like a follow through thing uh, with the stuff, at least. Like, but then
Oh,
again, we
okay.
haven't really done like a ton of the Wolfman.
Look, you've got Cat in the Hat, and you know there's not there's not a lot else to compare it to.
They didn't change his name. His name is still Talbot in Cat in the Hat.
Yeah, you still have
Exactly.
Talbot, you still have Gwen, but she's not just a person he meets in a store in this. She's
Mhm.
the
She's his
fiance
mother's
of her.
fiance, which is a little weird.
Yeah, and like they fall in love real quick for
Which is like a thing in the original. I think we laughed about it in our commentary that like their romance in the original is very like this is a 40s movie, so it's like, oh, go out with me, babe. No, now you're gonna go out with me. Okay, and then
yeah.
like a thing after that. So like I guess that's a thing they both have in common is weird romances.
Yeah, that's true. It's one of those things where I actually liked the on-screen chemistry okay. I thought it was your kind of typical rushed, obligatory romance. But like I thought she
Yeah.
was good.
But I
You've
like
got
Emily Blunt a lot, but like I found a lot of just the character stuff kind of lacking in this movie. Like I thought a little like it was kind of boring in places. It kind of dragged. It was like I
which is
need
funny because
some of
I
this to
felt
be
like a lot of it
visual.
was really rushed.
Well, and there's that too.
So
Like in
maybe
the
like
original. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
maybe what you're feeling is the scenes are dragging, and what I'm feeling is the story is rushed. If
Which
that makes any
it's
sense.
both at the same time, if that makes
And
sense.
that can absolutely happen. I don't think we're being wishy-washy by saying that.
No, exactly. No, and I really like the father son thing with the original, where the father has to kill his son, and like that's the tragedy of it. And I could have been won over on changing that to he's the villain, but the way they do it doesn't work.
Well, and I saw it coming.
That's the other thing, especially because it's Anthony Hopkins. Like it would have been
Yeah,
cool if it was Anthony Hopkins and he was a good guy.
yeah, where they make you suspect him, and then it turns out he wasn't the other Wolfman. Like, no, you kind of expect it. There's not even a red herring. There's not anybody else for me to guess at,
Well,
or was there supposed to be?
It's supposed to be
Or
because
is it supposed to be Hugo Weaving? Are we supposed to think that the investigator guy was always the weird? Because I don't think that's what it's supposed to be. Except Hugo Weaving has also played villains.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I think it's just supposed to be like you've seen the original, so like you're thinking of that.
Yeah,
Where
and
in the
don't
original it's a
do that.
gypsy, so it's like here's the gypsy camp. It must be one of the gypsies. I think is the red herring.
Yeah,
There's a lot of weird stuff like that. Like we bring in the wolf cane and it does nothing. And my cut is a whole setup scene for that, and apparently yours didn't.
well, I never even
But
noticed the wolf can in my version. Like, does it even appear in the theatrical cut? Because we didn't say that at the beginning. Austin watched the director's cut. I didn't know there was a director's cut, and just watched what was on Netflix, which is leaving in a month. So I'm glad we did this when we did this. But then Austin messaged me later, and he was like, "Oh, did you watch the director's cut?" I was like, "No, I didn't realize there was one." He's like, "Well, what's his face on Von Sydow was at the beginning." I was like, "Okay."
yeah, he shows up to be like, here's this wolf cane. Which is like a fine enough scene, but it doesn't go anywhere. Like that's a
It,
really important thing in the original. We didn't use it. It would have been cool if we used it.
well, what that suggests is that they did, and then they did reshoots, or they did, and then they
That's probably
scrapped it while they
true.
were filming it, right? Like, so it sounds like that scene put back in the director's cut was a scene for a different movie. I bet it
That's
was.
possible.
I
'Cause
bet
my
at one time that
forget.
cane was a MacGuffin, right?
hmm Well, because when watching it, because that's what it is in the original, is he
Yeah,
goes to the store and he gets the can. But watching it, I was like, okay, so that was just there to be a reference. Like, okay, like no wonder they cut it. But if that's, you're probably right. Like, it is probably a reshoot thing.
yeah. I bet it used to matter.
That makes sense.
There's a lot of stuff visually I dig with this movie.
Man, I just realized we also didn't do a synopsis. Should we do a synopsis?
Oh,
Or
I
we're
mean,
far enough. I don't
we're far enough in. I feel free to do a real brief one if you want to, Austin.
know. Ah, well, this is the Wolf Man. Larry Talbot becomes the Wolfman because his father done bit him, and he was also a wolf. And then he goes on a rampage. And Hugo Weaving is the cop that investigated Jack the Ripper, not like in the movie, but like in inspiration. That's
Yeah,
what he looks like.
that was a choice.
That was a choice. And
To
then
give
yeah,
him what credibility?
he didn't catch the guy
He
in the
didn't
first
catch
place.
him. Why bring that up? Like, you're the man that investigated Jack the Ripper. We should all be very impressed with this very Sherlock Holmesian detective. The one his most famous case was never resolved.
I almost got him. I threw a rock at Jack the Ripper.
You almost had it.
It was a big rock.
He skimmed it across the lake.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, I interrupted your plot synopsis.
That's okay. That was basically it.
I told Jason that Hugo Weaving was the policeman in this movie, and he said, "Oh, were there lots of him?"
I wish. I did really like Hugo Weaving in this movie.
Me
He's got
too.
some really good moments.
And he looks cool with a goatee.
He does, yeah. I really like that scene where he, because they're all out looking for the Wolfman, and he just goes into the bar, and the bartender's like, I don't want to serve you. Like, you should be out there looking for the guy. And he's like, look, there's like 500 people that live in this town. There's like, I don't know, like 20 of them that went out to find this guy. Everyone else was here. If he's gonna go out to kill people, he's gonna come here.
Yeah, that was great. And then he goes, "So bring me a beer then."
Yeah, exactly. That was a great scene.
That was a good scene. Another thing that's very inconsistent with this movie is dialogue, because some of it feels pretty authentic, and it's a little hammy all the way through, but there's like there's something of a like melodramatic like air to this movie from the beginning, so I'm okay with that. But there are places where it just goes to trailer fodder. It just goes to like superhero movie trailer fodder, where it takes the melodrama way too far, and then again that totally takes me out, because I'm like, I don't know, I didn't think I was watching a one-liner-y kind of movie. And then you got that like the best example I can think of is you've got that I don't know if this is not notorious, it should be. You've got that goofy line where he's like, sometimes the monsters chase you, and I'm like, yeah, they're monsters. Like that's so. Then it's like, oh, you're chasing a monster? Yes, but sometimes. Can you just imagine? I bet this is in the trailer. But sometimes the monsters chase you. And I'm like, ooh. Like, I want to put that in a ghost story around a campfire. But sometimes the ghosts chase you.
That should be Sony's new feel good or whatever their slogan is. Just
be
sometimes
moved.
The monsters chase you. Be moved, yeah.
Were you not... Did you not have your hand on your forehead when you heard that line?
It was so just like trailer fodder line. It was just like, whoosh. Like that just happened.
I just couldn't even believe it. And then missed opportunities with thematic ideas where Anthony Hopkins is like, don't live in the past, because the past is like terror or whatever. And I'm like,
the best part is he said it exactly like that.
I can't remember what he said. I wrote it down.
It's like terror.
It's
whatever.
like terror.
Just give me my money.
Whatever. Shut up, you. Oh, he says, never look back. The past is a wilderness of horrors.
Ooh,
that's pretty good. No, I kind of like that.
That's getting to like some Poe territory.
Yeah, and then I'm like, once you have the big reveal, like what is he getting at with that? Because I mean, yeah, he's moving forward because he's okay with being a werewolf, but his present and future are also a wilderness of horrors.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it made sense coming from the guy that you're not supposed to know is the werewolf, where... Because the context of that scene is... And I like the way he he delivered this is Anthony Hopkins saying, ever since your mother died, I am dead inside. He's like, look in my eyes. There's nothing there. I am dead now. And I thought what he meant was, and I mean, I said that I saw his being the werewolf coming at the point where, like more and more I'm supposed to be guessing at it is the only possible answer, right? But in that scene, I'm not totally sure. And it seems like what he's saying is, don't be like me. Mm-hmm. But retroactively, what is he getting at with that?
Reshoots.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, and you can say it's just like him getting a son off the trail or whatever, but like, I don't know, that character, like I said earlier, just ultimately is summed up to, he's a crazy psychopath now.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of it, and it's
well, and
it's
I
sad.
have a
Especially
question about his
Anthony Hopkins
too.
Because he's typecast because he played a very like mentally complex like insane killer who's very nuanced and layered.
Yeah, no, exactly.
In a little movie you might have heard of, it's called The Silence of the Lambs.
The most famous movie ever made.
I'm sorry, Austin. I didn't mean to talk over you, man.
No, it's okay. Oh yeah, I have a question about his origin too. So he went to a cave and he got bitten by a golem and became a werewolf.
It was just Gollum.
Yeah, and it was just Gollum, like straight up. Why does his son see visions of Gollum?
Is it like a shared memory passed through the bite? Because I feel like I've seen that done. I think the Teen Wolf TV show maybe did that. Like I've seen that with werewolf stuff before.
Because I always like it's just there because
that's after this, but
we want jump scares and like, but like why Gollum? Like why is Gollum jumping out at him?
Yeah, I don't know why
they sense.
I don't know why they designed it to be Gollum.
Yeah, it's stupid.
No, that's really stupid. I will tell you though, and then Robert, I'll get to your super chat. There is a thing that I had a ton of respect for, because there was a thing toward the end that I really thought they were gonna do in holding the audience's hand, and I was so glad it didn't happen, and I was terrified. So yeah, I'm praising it for not doing this thing, and maybe they just didn't think about it, and they would have if they'd thought of it, but thank God it wasn't there. You know what I thought was gonna happen? When you have that scene at the end where the love interest tragically has to kill him, I am glad that they went that way and it wasn't a happy ending, by the way, because I was a little bit concerned that they were going to try to flip the script on that, and he was going to live.
It's a Universal Monster movie. You got to make it tragic.
I actually like that she was the one that did it, if only I bought their falling in love better, but anyway, but I kind of liked that choice. I can't remember now. She stabs him, or does she shoot? No, I'm sorry. She shoots him. She shoots him with the silver bullet, of course. She either shoots him or is about to, and we've got that lingering long shot in her eyes, or in his eye of her. You remember that reflection shot? And it goes on for a long time. I thought we were gonna flash back to the skimming stones scene, and I was so glad that didn't happen. And that went on for so long, I kept waiting for it, and I was like, thank God we didn't go there.
Oh my God, I want to take that scene now and edit just every scene that they've had before that into that.
Do a montage?
Yeah, with singing, not singing in the rain. Raindrops are falling on my head, put over it.
And then that no, you're absolutely right. You got to do this, because then what you do at the end of it, because he's referencing Spider-Man 2. What you do is you at the end of that montage, you got that bit where she finally manages to skim the stone. She's got that big smile on her face, and then you freeze frame it.
Freeze frame it.
And then she comes back out of it. Brilliant.
Okay, I'm gonna work on this after this video. This sounds great.
And then I want you to make, because Robert just said this, and I was thinking about it too. I want you to then do a second cut of it, where it's the Skim and Stone song from Splinter with from the coming out of their shelf tour.
Okay.
Skim and Stones, his like John Mellencamp song.
I'll have to look into that. Okay, I'll add that to the list.
I'm sorry, I'm turning this into a project for you, but it's got to be done.
Oh, it has to be done.
Somebody has to do this. Robert put it in $2 super chat. Speaking of Robert, thanks, buddy. He says, I like the mental institution sequence a lot. I like, and this is going to be my refrain with this. I like it on paper, and I like it visually. And then it just kind of breaks down if I think about it for any amount of time. Like, why is everybody running that mental institution so sadistic and cruel and insane? Like
it suddenly turns into like a Gore Verbinski horror movie where it's got like some of that style into it.
It just didn't feel like it fit. And again, I get melodrama, but like it was the wrong kind of heightened at that point. Why is there like an Igor doing the Craig who's got this like big smile on his face, like I'm drowning a man?
You know what it turned into is that Ravencroft scene from Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh,
but
yeah,
not as over the top.
Somehow, yeah. What did you think of that scene?
So I was very mixed on it. I was like,
I say
like
scene, just all that
kind of like
stuff
a montage,
in Arkham, because you got the thing with him, being tortured in the water, and then
which was in the trailer. I remember the specific shot where he like goes down.
Oh, really? I don't remember the trailer anymore. And then you get to although I don't remember the trailer, but I'm pretty sure that line I said earlier is in that trailer.
Well, I don't remember the trailer, but I remember seeing the trailer at the time, and it was like memory unlocked. I've seen this shot before.
Look, sometimes the monster chases you, Austin.
Exactly, and sometimes you'll never forget somebody trying to drown Benicio del Toro, I guess.
But then you've got, of course, the big scene, and I think somebody might have brought it up earlier, but you've got the big scene where the guy running the institution is trying to prove that he's just having hallucinations, and the moon comes out, and it's the scene from the original, but it's like insanely over the top. It like goes just absolutely to the nines.
Mm-hmm. No, and I wanted it to be, because the whole thing is he's like, look, like these are all delusions, blah blah blah, and in the background he's like slowly transforming, and everyone in the room's like, he's doing a thing. Look, turn around.
How's he not hearing any of that? It's like that football player in Dark Knight Rises where the ground is coming out from under him, and somehow he doesn't notice.
No, I wanted them because they were going that far with it. I wanted them to go further, and I was like, if this scene does not end with this man talk, like a shot, like head on of this guy talking, and then suddenly a hand grabs the back of his head and rips it off, then this scene just wasn't worth making, because that's clearly how you end this. And then they didn't do that, and I was sad.
No, I mean he had some pretty brutal kills in that scene.
Mm-hmm. No, I like. Because, like I said, I think I'm more with the action than you were. Like I did like some of that, like rampage stuff. So no, I liked that aspect. And in the middle of that asylum part, it just turns into a Gore Verbinski music video.
Yes. That's exactly what it is.
The thing that happened.
Well, and then I can't get into the action in that scene just because what leads up to it is that god-awful transformation effect. And so I'm just completely taken out, and I don't feel like I'm in the fiction anymore. And that's...
No, we're like right on his face in it. It's rough.
It's rough. And honestly, I had that... I think that's part of why I didn't like the action sequences as much as you. Like, I didn't like the attitude of them, admittedly. But some of it, too, is I just wasn't buying what I was seeing.
No, that is very true. No, I like it when it's the Rick Baker monster effect, because one of my things with the original is I really like all the old Universal monster designs, but I think the Wolfman is just kind of off. Like, he's the weakest looking one, I think. And the Rick Baker design is like, okay, we took that and we bumped it up to the quality of the other ones.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
But then you have to keep seeing it in CG, and it reminds me of like cartoon Harry Potter face. Like,
Hmm. Especially
stop
when you
it.
get to the wolf versus wolf fight.
Yeah, that was a little hard to look at.
Hmm. Especially the part where like he finally kills Anthony Hopkins and you have that close up of his head rolling at the
Oh my
camera.
god,
It's
it's
bad.
bad. No, ironically, I liked some of the quote unquote superhero stuff more than the actual horror stuff. Like when he's roof jumping, like that was cool.
Yeah, no, I like that scene where he's jumping across. He's jumping on rooftops, and Hugo Weaving shooting at him from the ground. Like all that was really cool.
It looked like a big wolf,
And he
man.
roars in the gargoyle. It was great.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. Yeah, the gargoyle was cool.
Hmm.
I wanted more of that stuff.
Hmm.
Is it when it was real brooding and atmospheric? That's when it was working for me. When it
Hmm.
decided to be a horror movie, I was tuning out.
Hmm. One that leads to my best scene of the movie, and it's really weird because it's like 20 seconds, and you're gonna be like, "That was so nothing. I don't remember it."
Yeah,
But
sure.
it's when it's right after that when the boy's like, you know, Talbot missing, like get your paper. And he walks over and he buys all the papers. I thought that scene was really cute. I was like, okay, this is my favorite scene of the movie.
I was okay. One of two things happened with that. Either that's just in the director's cut, or I was taking care of a baby at the time and I turned away and I missed that part. That
Like I
that
said, it's such a nothing scene. I'm the only person
that
that'd be
might have
like,
happened.
that's my favorite part. But it was really good. I liked that part.
Yeah, well, just full disclosure, I definitely missed a little bit here and there visually because I was taking care of kids while I was trying to watch this. But
Yeah, it is what it
or
is.
I say kids, I was taking care of a baby. I didn't let
Yeah.
my aware thinking kids in the same room while I was watching this, but I had to feed a baby. So anyway, what else do you want to talk about, Austin?
Um, this is also like a very minor thing, but it's weird that they like combine the title into one word. It's the only place that's ever done that. I don't know why. That was a weird choice.
I keep calling it the Marv Wolfman.
Yeah, exactly. Because earlier today you were like, "Oh, some like I'm watching the Wolfman or whatever," and
The
I was like,
Wolfman.
"The Wolfman," and I was like, "Oh, he must have like you must think it's one word, but like the Wolfman's not; it's two words." And then
This one is. It's one
this one
word.
is. Yeah, that's weird. It was a choice.
Is it superhero all the way to that degree where they're like, oh, it's like Batman. It's supposed to be one word.
Maybe the next one should add a hyphen.
Well, I was gonna say like it at least hyphenated.
Mhm.
That wouldn't be as odd. At least you'd pronounce it the same way. I think I know what your answer is going to be to this, but like besides just trying to be trendy, because keep in mind we're 2 years after MCU starts, superhero stuff is getting more and more in vogue. Dark Knight has happened. Um, is there any reason beyond just commercially maybe this is more viable if we try to make it feel more like a superhero movie? Like, is there anything like like story wise or idea wise that makes them think let's make this feel like a superhero movie? Because it's not a superhero movie. There's like our hero isn't really a hero except that he's got, well, it is in the sense that he's got a villain that is the other side of his coin, right? Like there's a bad Wolfman and he's still not a good Wolfman, but the actual man is good. And they try to have that like Wolverine, man versus like animal inside thing, I guess. But beyond that, like, is there really any reason to make this feel like a superhero movie? You're gonna kill your hero at the end of the film, like. And that's part of why I was really afraid that they were going to go for a happy ending at the end, where it was going to be the Wolfman origin story.
Wolfman Untold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess like it is just like a commercial, like people are gonna want to see the Wolfman fight the Wolfman thing, which becomes like much more of a trope And a trope that I really don't like in the 2010s, which is the monster has to. It's mainly the one that I don't like is the monster has to save the protagonist from like somebody else that's like a monster. We do that a lot.
Yeah.
This is like a better example, I guess, because it's just the Wolfman versus the Wolfman, but it's done so poorly. It's I like visually, I mean,
Yeah.
that it's like that wasn't great. Um, that said, like in terms of Universal doing superhero, this is one of the better versions. Like I'll take this over the Mummy or Dracula Untold.
You mean the recent Mummy, or?
Yes. Yeah, because the '90s one's just Indiana Jones.
Yeah, like it's a different thing, but it at least knows what it's trying to be. Like those movies
Yeah.
don't want to be horror films. Like they've got scary stuff in them, but
Mhm. And it kind of makes sense. I don't. The Mummy is weird. The Mummy's always the weakest Universal franchise. So
when FG brought that up in the comments there, and I'm not sure who that is, but thanks for the comment. He says Universal was obsessed with trying to turn the Universal monsters into action schlock ever since The Mummy in 1999. That's a terrific point.
oh yeah, and there's also Van Helsing. I forgot about that as well,
Yeah,
and that's Hugh Jackman specifically.
yeah.
Yeah. No,
So I mean, the
exactly.
bar is not very high, but like as critical as we've been of this, like it's better than some of these.
Mhm.
The as he says, action schlock versions of these kinds. I think it's better than Van Helsing,
Mhm. Oh,
which
100%.
is not hard.
And I'm like one of the only people that like Renfield, so it's like Renfield and then this movie and then everything else.
Like if this were brand new and we were doing a how we felt about, I would probably flip light green actually.
No, so would I. I think this is like a perfectly fine movie.
Yeah, like we could pick it apart all day long, but like it was fun. It was fun. I was
Mhm.
frustrated with things about it.
Well, in a
Uh,
lot of ways, it very
and
much is.
it's clearly compromised, which is
Yeah.
irritating.
Mhm. No, in a lot of ways, it is a roller coaster ride. You have the high highs and you have the low lows. Like it's.
Well, and oddly, that's the one thing we can be sure it wanted to be is a roller coaster ride because it wants to be a blockbuster.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's a roller coaster of ideas. Shove
Yes,
them in there.
yes, it is. But I'm kind of glad we watched it.
No, I am too. I want to say I watched at least like half of this at the time. I don't think I ended up full like finishing it because slowly as we went along, it was like, okay, I don't remember any of this. Uh, but no, I'm glad I finally sat down and watched all of it.
I'm really surprised that you never went back to it, as big of a fan as you are of this kind of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean now we just gotta wait and see for October to see how the next one is, which also has production issues. So
Oh, good.
maybe
That's just what we do know.
that comes out in
That's just
October, and it lost Ryan Gosling and its main director like in December. So
wow.
we'll see how that
I meant
goes.
to say, Johnston was also like a last minute choice for director. This was originally supposed to be directed by the guy who did 1 Hour Photo.
Yeah, and they had like a whole list I saw of people that they were like, we need a workman director. Let's get people in. And some of them, like, I kind of wish did it. Like Frank Darabont, I'd like to see what his Wolfman looked like. Um, but like, I'm fine that Joe Johnston did it. He did a well enough job.
But I mean, this was a situation where they had a guy that was attached and left weeks before they started filming.
Hmm. Yeah,
Isn't
no,
that
no,
crazy?
it is. Yeah.
But honestly, I think Johnston is like, I mean, I want to say competent enough, but that sounds almost disparaging. Like I've always liked his style,
But Joe
and
Johnston, I think, is like a very like old school workman director. Where like
yeah,
that wasn't exactly
and not Workman in a bad way.
in a
Like
bad
he's
way. Exactly. Yeah.
well, he's more versatile than I think a lot of people realize because all I knew for sure I had seen from him is Rocketeer and Captain America, and obviously he's doing a lot of the same stuff with that he did with Rocketeer because similar periods and stalwart, kind of do no wrong action heroes. And then you go to this and you're like, Oh, okay. He's more like a Robert Wise or somebody, where like he's
Like
versatile.
Kenneth Branagh.
He'll make what you're gonna whatever it is you're trying to make. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, with Captain America, like, how much of that is he wanted to make it look like the Rocketeer, and how much of it was Marvel wanted the Rocketeer? Like, it's then that's why they hired him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like that's the reason they pulled him into the first place.
Mm.
Or he's like a Schumacher or something.
Mm. Well, I feel like they've done more and more of that now, because like that's obviously what they do with Raimi, where they get Raimi to come in and do the Raimi thing, like do the kind of things you've done before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
And that's going to be
it's kind of
frustrating
fun.
for those guys who would probably like to get to spread their wings, and then especially like when they get older and in their later years, where they're like, okay, the only work I'm getting, unless I finance a movie myself, is like trying to force me to go back to my quote unquote glory days. And I think a lot of these guys, you know, and it's not like Sam Raimi, you know, can't find work or whatever, but I feel like when they're just to your example, when somebody like Marvel Studios goes to him, it's not even him trying to relive his former glory. It's they're going, we want you to do what you did 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. One with Raimi, because he hadn't directed a movie in like, I want to say over a decade at that point, maybe close to.
Yeah, when was From Hell?
So that's before. The last thing he did was, and that's 2010,
I couldn't remember
2011.
when that was. Yeah.
But his last movie before that's Oz the Great and Powerful, which I think is 13.
Oh yeah, I always forget that's him. Yeah.
Yeah, and he had like such a bad time. He hadn't directed anything. He was producer, like
not
he
a
was
good
doing a lot
movie.
of stuff. But I think for him it was better coming in to do the like relive your old hit stuff, because it made him go, oh yeah, I like directing.
Oh sure,
Like,
yeah.
when I heard him in interviews, he was like, oh, I missed how fun this was. I want to direct more things.
So that's
I'm
a
like,
different situation.
yes.
That's burnout before it's, oh, no one cares about me anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're somehow at an hour.
That is true. Robert says From Hell isn't Raimi. I must have misheard what you said. I didn't realize you said From Hell.
What is that movie?
That's
Drag Me to Hell. What was
my
that?
brain autofilled it.
Yeah, and my brain auto corrected to the wrong thing. Anyway, I don't know about any of this stuff. I don't know why you guys
You
want me to
ever
talk about
seen Drag Me to
horror
Hell,
movies.
Cap?
No, I haven't.
You should, because the plot of that movie, like the first scene, I think it's like the first scene. I've only seen it once, but the setup of that plot is just the bank scene from Spider-Man 2. But like, if Aunt May was an evil gypsy that cursed the banker.
Oh, I'm going to bring this up just because Spider-Man 2 came up earlier, and now we're talking about Raimi again, and you brought up the bank scene. So I was flipping through channels on YouTube TV today, and which I don't do a lot of. I really just have that this time
know
of
that
the
was
year
a thing, YouTube TV.
for basketball. Yeah, it's a way to basically have a cable.
Okay.
Through internet, and I get it for like 3 months out of the year to watch college basketball, and I was flipping through channels because we watched like an episode of Dexter's Laboratory on Cartoon Network, and I was flipping to find something else for the kids to watch, and I landed on Spider-Man 2. Which was broadcasting on FX, but they were showing an extended cut that I had never seen. I forgot that had an extended cut.
Oh yeah, the was like 2.1 or whatever.
Yeah, but see, I thought I was forgetting that, or I was remembering this wrong. I thought 2.1 was like X-Men 1.5, where it's called that, and they put more deleted scenes in, but they didn't actually make another cut. But no, they made another cut, and we came in, and I didn't realize it was a longer version. But the point that we came in was the elevator scene that goes on for like 9 years.
Oh, it like never ends. Yeah.
And it's dreadful. And then it cuts immediately to another scene that I hadn't seen, or I had only seen in deleted scenes, I guess, with Peter and Connor's class, and I was like, what is this cut? And then I remembered, oh yeah, there's an extended cut, but I've never actually sat through it.
I think the only thing worth seeing in the extended cut of Spider-Man 2 is the train fight, which is weird because the train fight goes on too long for me normally. But it extends the part that I like of the train fight. And it's kind of hard for me to go back to the theatrical cut for that scene because I can see where it's cut down.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting. Yeah, Robert was saying it's more like an alternate cut than an extended cut. I didn't realize that.
mhm. Yeah, like there's like a whole thing where he gets hit by a train in the train fight, which is maybe like going a little too far, but it's real cool.
Yeah, it's weird when you've seen a movie like a bazillion times and you know what's coming next, and then something happens that you haven't seen before, and you're like, "Oh wow, movies change when I'm watching them."
Yeah, no, and then you go back to it and you're like, oh man, like I can see where the weird cut of it, like that's weird. Like I can see where there's missing things.
Yeah, you
Oh,
feel
that's
like
right, Lucas Green. That's also where the Jameson in the Spider-Man costume is.
okay. See, I've always heard about that, but I've never actually seen it.
That is the other thing that's worth it.
Okay, I'll go back and look at that at some point.
I just watched that scene on YouTube. It's like 30 seconds.
That's what I meant. I'll just watch that scene. But anyway, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Sure appreciate it. If you're watching live right now and you want to hang out with us some more, here in a few minutes, we're going to go over and watch probably about 3 episodes or so of Ninja Turtles 2003. We've been watching through that show this year, and it's been about 3 weeks since we've had a chance to get back to that, so we're going to go ahead and do some of that tonight, and more stuff coming your way on Geekvolution this week. Next time, Austin, going back and forth right now between regular reviews and commentaries for some things that I need to fulfill from when I was doing Unscripted Rewind. So we were asked by Dave Atkins to do a movie, or I was anyway, when I was doing the Unscripted show, to do a movie called Angel A, which came out in '05 and was
I've heard of that.
It's like I think like a French romantic comedy. I think it's like an hour and a half.
Okay.
I don't know anything else about that, and I don't know if that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, because when you look at the poster for it, it looks like maybe it's like Angela, but there's a dash, so I don't know if it's Angela or Angel A, but that's what it looks like the title is. So anyway, we're going to attempt to do that as a commentary, because just for folks that don't know about this, I'm not doing the Unscripted show anymore, and people paid more for these, so I feel like the way to handle them is to spend more time with them and actually watch the movie along with it, and gotta take our time some. So that's what we're gonna do with this. I've got a few of those left, and there's some movies on this list that people are gonna be really excited to get commentaries for. One of them, and maybe the very next one after that, at least commentary-wise, is The Lighthouse. I think people will be excited to see us do that. So yeah, we've got some cool stuff in there. I'm not sure what that face was. I don't know if that was oh no, I don't want to do that face, or if that was an exciting face. Yeah, because I thought you liked that movie, but I couldn't.
And I love that movie. Yeah, I got a really nice A24 Blu-ray of that.
Oh, neat. Yeah,
it's like too long. It's like this. It's like awkward to put with anything, but it's a really nice release.
Yeah, those kinds of things are annoying to try to put on a shelf, but you get them anyway because they look awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very interested to go back to that because I was not won over by the ending the first time I saw it, but I've only seen it once. So
yeah, and I watched it the first time because I love Robert Eggers. One of the only movies I'm super excited for this year is his Nosferatu remake, and I really love The Witch. People for years, people told me like, it's kind of boring, like it's like whatever, and I ended up watching it like 5 a.m, and I was like, I'll probably fall asleep, and then I was like so enthralled.
Oh wow!
And then when I saw The Lighthouse in the theater, I was like, oh, that was good, but like it wasn't as good as The Witch. And then I rewatched it in COVID, and I was like, this is just my life now. This is a masterpiece.
You can relate to it. Well, it's funny because I saw it during COVID. Mm-hmm. That's when I watched it.
Well, it wasn't just like it was like COVID, but I also wasn't at my house. Like I was like quarantined at a different house.
Oh,
so it was like
wow.
As this is my life right now.
That's really interesting. Did you watch it with your imaginary friend? Is that?
I did, yeah. I had a little toy of Pattinson, but we won't go into that because it's after dark.
Oh, hey, for a second, let me backtrack. I hate doing this, but there's just one more point I wanted to make about the movie review tonight, which is, is it? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm blanking for a second. It's Del Toro, right? Yeah, Benicio del Toro.
Yeah.
His performance is great.
Yeah.
Like
Uh,
he's quite good in it.
I found it like weird that he was the son of Anthony Hopkins, but like
Well,
it's
maybe he
whatever.
was the adopted son of Anthony Hopkins.
Maybe, yeah. And I do prefer Lon Chaney Jr. from the original, but I did like Del Toro in this.
I don't know. It felt like he was really giving his all, and he's apparently a giant fan of that original movie and like collects merchandise and stuff. Like,
That's
I
awesome.
guess he campaigned to be in this movie, and I don't know. I felt like his enthusiasm for it was kind of infectious. Like,
Well, that was the thing with the new one that comes out this year is that Ryan Gosling was like, I really want to do the Wolfman. So they started making a Wolfman with him, and then he dropped out like in December. And I'm like, oh,
oh
well, there goes
no.
half the reason I was excited.
Folks, if you are interested in making a request, you can go to patreon.com/geekvolution. The $15 tier makes that possible. We've got quite a list right now, so it's going to be a few months before we get to yours if you add something to the list. Just so you know, all you have to do is be on Patreon for 1 month, and you'll be in the queue no matter how long it takes us to get to that. You can stay subscribed if you want to keep in the rotation, but you don't have to do that. Thanks a ton to the folks that have chosen to do that. You guys are great, but just $15 one time, and if it's 4 or 5 months before we get to you, and it will be, you will still get your request done. We're doing these once a week, and you can ask for a movie, for comics, or for a TV pilot, or an episode of a show that we are familiar with already. And if you want to ask for a commentary instead, that is the $30 tier, and you can do that for this show or for the Superhero Rewind Commentary Project. And if you pick a superhero movie, you'll get it a lot faster. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and we will see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan. This was Austin, the Day Ghost.
See ya, folks.
Later, folks. Thanks for watching.